Hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in the world. They kill approximately 500 people each year in Africa. That's more than twice the body count of lions. But for South African farmer Marius, he found a hippo to be a lovable pet. So much so that he treated it like his child. He even gave it a human name, Humphrey the Hippo. Els was quoted saying, "They say you can only have a relationship with dogs, cats, and domestic animals. But I have a relationship with the most dangerous animal in Africa." The two seemed to share a special bond. Humphrey would let Marius ride on his back. He'd respond to his commands and even open his mouth to have his teeth brushed. But on one fateful day, things took a dark turn. Marius's body was found in a river, torn apart by his beloved pet hippo. While Marius didn't survive, Paul Templar, who was nearly eaten alive by a hippo, lived to tell the tale.
Suddenly, my world went dark and so quiet.
Given their yearly kill count, incredible size, and unpredictable behavior, hippos are not an animal you want to come into contact with. Today we'll find out what made Marius's pet hippo finally snap. How did Paul manage to free himself from the hippo's mouth? And why are pain hippos terrorizing people in Colombia? Before we dive into this one, make sure to like and subscribe for more unbelievable survival stories. The hippopotamus is the third largest land animal behind only the elephant and the white rhino. They're mostly found in sub-Saharan Africa, but some have managed to make an appearance on other continents. More on that later. They can reach lengths of up to 5 meters and heights of over 1.5 meters. Given their size, they can also be quite heavy, with some males weighing over 4,100 kilograms. You definitely don't want to be trampled by one of these behemoths. But that's not the only thing you should be afraid of. Hippos have razor-sharp canines that grow up to 50 centimeters. And to make matters worse, a hippo's bite is almost 3 times as powerful as a lion's, crunching in at 1,800 psi. That's more than enough to snap off a limb. While they're mostly herbivores, that doesn't mean they won't try and bite you, especially if they feel threatened. They're incredibly territorial and won't think twice about defending their home at all costs. This includes going to war with other hippos, or anything or anyone who comes too close. All in all, they are not to be played with, and definitely shouldn't be kept as a pet. Something that Marius learned too late. Marius ignored the dangers of befriending and caring for a hippo. Humphrey the hippo was rescued from a flood when he was just a 5-month-old baby. After a few months and a significant increase in size, the hippo's guardian angels could no longer care for him. With land and time to spare, Marius decided to give Humphrey a new home. Rather than seeing the hippo as the wild animal he was, Marius treated him like a domesticated pet. He taught it to swim, hold its mouth open, to have its teeth brushed, and even rode it like a horse, both on land and in water. Marius went as far as building a man-made lake on his property for Humphrey to play in and to make him feel truly at home. Although he viewed his uncommon pet hippo to be like a son, he was aware of the risks involved, explaining that he knew it was a little bit dangerous, but trusted Humphrey with his heart that he wouldn't harm anybody. Would you be that trusting? Marius felt very comfortable with his companion, but others, like his wife, did not. His wife Louise repeatedly warned him about the dangers of keeping a hippo, but Marius wasn't convinced, not even after a brutal attack on his property. Marius's nephew, Johan, who worked on the farm, was attacked by Humphrey in late 2010.
I wanted to run, but I thought, there's no way I can outrun a speeding hippo.
Johan's right about that. Hippos can reach up to speeds of 48 kilometers an hour on land. In Johan's case, he wasn't fast enough to get out of the way. He said it felt like being hit by a car. If you find yourself being charged by a hippo, you need to run for cover. Get behind a vehicle, tree, hill, or anything that could slow the hippo down. Thankfully, Johann survived the attack after Marius came to his rescue. Still, Humphrey bit a chunk of Johann's lower body, piercing his pelvis and barely missing his vital organs. Humphrey's next victim wouldn't be so lucky, as the now 6-year-old hippo, weighing over 1,000 kilograms, turned on the man who raised him, Marius. In November of 2011, just a year after Johann's incident, Marius's body was discovered submerged in the same river Humphrey was rescued in. Paramedics found him disfigured with bite marks all over his body. They couldn't determine whether it was the attack or drowning that ultimately killed him. No one knows for sure what led to the attack. Did Humphrey feel threatened, or was it just instinct to protect his territory? One thing is for sure: don't have a hippo as a pet. As seen with Marius, they can be very unpredictable and violent, even when held in captivity. And for my adventurous viewers out there, if you're ever in the Sub-Sahara and spot a hippo, listen to my next words carefully. Don't approach it, especially if they look like they're yawning. That's actually hippo for back off. Try to stay on open land where you can spot the hippo and where it can spot you. This may be tough since they're nocturnal, so you'd likely only see them roaming around on land during the nighttime. They don't like to be startled, so sneaking by one is not in your best interest. And this next tip might stink, but it could save your life. Look out for large pieces of hippo poo that have been spread over a wide area. This is how they mark paths between the water and food on land, using their tails to wipe it around. During the day, hippos tend to stay in the water, so be sure to stay away from nearby lakes and rivers where they're sunbathing. Even if you aren't planning on going near the water, you need to leave a clear trail for the large animal to make a run for it should something else startle it. But how would you survive an attack in water? Well, South African tour guide Paul Templar did exactly that, and in the process, he was almost eaten alive. On a day that Templar wasn't even supposed to be working, his life would change forever. In his own words, Paul explained that life was really good, until one day he had a really bad day at the office. Paul Templar was a 28-year-old tour guide working in Zimbabwe, where he's originally from. Leading photographic safaris, he would take curious tourists onto the Zambezi River, an area known to be home to elephants, giraffes, crocodiles, and of course, hippos. Getting certified to lead these journeys is no easy task. Given his previous experience with the British Army, Paul may have had a slight advantage in dealing with extreme situations. Yet no amount of expertise could prepare him for what was about to happen. It was March 9th, 1996. A good friend of Paul's, who was supposed to lead the expedition down the river, had become ill with malaria. Paul loved leading the tour so much, he decided to step in on his day off, helping tourists capture photographs like never before. At first, things were going well. In total, there were 10 people on the tour, which consisted of 3 canoes and 1 kayak. In addition to Paul, there were 3 other apprentice guides: Evans, Ben, and Mac. As they approached a group of hippos, Paul led everyone toward a path to get around them safely. This was just moments before a disaster would strike in the form of a big, angry hippo. While they're known to cool off in bodies of water, hippos don't swim or float like other animals do. Instead, they use their webbed toes to push off the surface below them to get around. Surprisingly, they can't breathe underwater, but they are capable of holding their breath for up to 5 minutes, something Paul would learn all too well. While cautiously paddling around the pod of hippos, he noticed the canoe led by Evans had somehow gone off course, catching the attention of an unwanted guest.
I turned, I saw Evans, his canoe, atop a hippo, and Evans the paddler flying out into the river.
Evans swam against the current, which was pulling him toward a mama hippo and her babies. Paul knew he had to act fast. Turning his canoe around, he made his way toward Evans in an attempt to save him. That's when the worst 3.5 minutes of Paul's life would begin.
I'm like reaching over and he's reaching out of the water, and as our fingers almost touch, just suddenly the water explodes and everything goes dark.
The next thing he knew, Paul was waist deep down a hippo's throat. There was an immense pressure on his back. Fighting for his life, he could hardly move.
Fortunately, I must have been so far wedged down the hippo's throat that a gag reflex forced him to eject me.
Yeah, the hippo spat him out. But this was just the beginning of the horrors to come. Paul caught up with Evans. He was frozen in shock.
I think terror and panic had literally overwhelmed him. So I turned and swam back for him, and I was just moving in for your classic lifesavers hold when I'm hit from below.
Once again, Paul was caught waist deep in the hippo's mouth. This time, his arms were free, so he could reach for his gun. But the sheer power of the hippo thrashing him around made it impossible.
I could see the skin getting torn off like a hot knife cutting through butter.
Miraculously, Paul managed to escape again, but Evans was nowhere to be found. Paul figured he must have swam to safety. And just when he thought he was safe to swim to shore, the hippo came back for thirds.
This time my head and neck and shoulders are outside one side of his mouth, and from like my waist down is outside the other. And then he just goes berserk.
For whatever reason, the hippo finally released him, and another apprentice guide, Mac, quickly came over and helped Paul get to a nearby rock. The group was left without a first aid kit, gun, or radio. They had 2 canoes and 1 paddle, and their lead guide, Paul, was mangled and bleeding out quickly. He had a punctured lung, a gaping hole in his back, bite marks all over his body, and one of his forearms was crushed to a pulp. With no sign of Evans and nightfall approaching, Paul and his group made the tough decision to find their way to safety without him. But they weren't in the clear. As they headed to shore, the hippo continuously bumped their canoe as Paul dealt with the agonizing pain from the attack. Thankfully, they were able to make it to land, but had to drive another 8 hours to a hospital before Paul could get the medical attention he desperately needed. Over the next month, he had several major surgeries following an attack that, by most medical accounts, should have killed him. When all was said and done, the surgeon was able to save both of Paul's legs, but only one of his arms. Evans' body was found a few days after the attack without any bite marks on it. It's believed he drowned during the struggle. The attack changed Paul's life forever, but didn't stop him from returning to the river that almost cost him his life. Although he retired from being a guide, Paul has gone on to become a successful author and speaker with a new outlook on life. Hopefully you never find yourself in a situation like Paul's, but if you do come face to face with a hippo in the water, here are some key points to remember. First things first, if you're in a boat or swimming near hippos, stay as far away from them as possible. Make loud noises like hitting the side of your boat to alert the hippo to your presence. And most importantly, be very aware of your surroundings. Hippos are most dangerous in the water, where they submerge most of their body and sneak up on unsuspecting predators. They have membranes over their eyes that work like goggles, allowing them to see clearly when underwater. In many African villages without water, sharing the land with hippos is the only choice. This leads to a lot of attacks and sometimes the deaths of people simply trying to wash their clothes or catch fish to feed their families. Attacks on fishermen are common in Africa, but you'd be surprised to learn where else in the world hippos have been found. Back in the 1980s, drug lord Pablo Escobar imported 4 hippos to live in his private zoo. Following his death, the majority of the animals on his estate either died or were taken to a local zoo, but his hippos, consisting of 1 male and 3 females, were left for Mother Nature to deal with. Given Escobar's line of work, the hippos were dubbed the cocaine hippos, and based on how quickly they repopulated, it's evident the group of 4 liked to party. With no natural predators or droughts, both of which help control the hippo population in Africa, the hippos have become an invasive species in Colombia, forcing the government to take action and sterilize them. So if it isn't obvious enough, hippos, much like grizzly bears, should not be kept as pets. Yet, some people just never learn until it's too late. We'll explain how Timothy Treadwell got eaten alive on another episode of How to Survive.